Check, check, check.
Heard that there was an after party. It's not my business. I
You were
wasn't
done
there.
at 10
I know
o'clock.
nothing. I'm like, stop telling me things. I don't want to know.
Is this at Casa?
No, at St. Vincent. So Phoebe's nephews go. Yeah.
Freshman and
That was a check.
They're hilarious. They're
full of it, Joanna. Be careful.
so much personality.
Aren't they waves?
No, these kids are.
Yep. Okay. Yep.
This is a good time to turn off your cell phones.
Maybe just Bond Project. Oh God, I didn't even think about the Bond Project.
Oh, what?
I thought about everything else.
You think about what?
About the Bond Project. I mean, the bond and how they're spending the money on it.
I don't have time for all that right now. Once we get elected, we'll worry about it.
No, I was just thinking about the question.
Oh.
It was on Argus, right? Yeah, I know. We have two more of these, three more of these, two more.
Good evening. On behalf of the Petaluma Argus Courier, the Petaluma branch of the American Association of University Women, and the League of Women Voters of Sonoma County, welcome. This is a candidates forum for trustees for Petaluma City Schools District. I'm Pam Granger, and I'll be moderating this evening. Tonight, you'll just get a brief look at these fine candidates, a taste, kind of a chance to put a name with the face. We're so fortunate that this many have decided that they're willing to serve our community that you're going to need to pay attention and then go to the websites and the Facebook pages of these candidates later, or feel free to contact them yourselves. We're on a really tight schedule, so it will be tempting occasionally to clap, but if you could hold on to that thought until the end, I promise I'll give you some time. So let's get started. Overseeing Sonoma County's largest school district in the South County is a great responsibility. Serving about 7,500 students, the Petaluma City Schools budget is about $74 million, and they employ about 880 people. The board is made up of 5 trustees, and on November 6th, voters in the district will select 3 of these candidates. So before we get started, I'm going to outline the forum format. Earlier this evening, our candidates drew for the order in which they're seated. I'll begin the question and answer session, and each candidate will have an opportunity to speak to a couple of questions for about 1.5 minutes. The first questions are from those submitted by the co-sponsors. And as you came in, you might have been offered a 3x5 card because we won't be able to get to all your questions. If you choose to give us your email address and a name on the card, we'll compile any of those that weren't asked and furnish them to the candidates, so if they have a chance, they will have an opportunity to reply to you later. Following the question and answer period, each candidate will have a 2-minute summary to tell you why they are your person. Now, just remember there will be a forum for City Council immediately following, so we're going to do a quick change act when we get done here. Our timekeepers this evening are Sheila Garvey and Dee Short. Hold up your hands, ladies. One of the timekeepers will indicate with a yellow card when there's 15 seconds remaining during any of your comments. And when the time's up, she'll display the red card asking that you complete your sentence and stop. All right. So as I said earlier, this is an excellent time for you to silence your cell phones. Our candidates are Sherry Slobonsky, Caitlin Quinn, Mike Badley, Joanna Pond, Maddie Cloud, and Phoebe Ellis. Thank you all for being here. So we'll start with the first question here with Sherry. So what's the purpose of the school board trustee, and what qualities do you have that would make you the perfect one for the job?
So the Board of Education's job, that doesn't sound like a the Board of Education's job is to hire and fire and monitor the superintendent, to make sure the district doesn't go bankrupt, and to set the goals and the mission with the superintendent, and also make sure that we're following all state and federal laws. It's a pretty large citizen oversight committee. This is my second term. I'm finishing up. Still can't hear me? I feel like I'm, okay. Thank you. This is my second term. I'm finishing on the Board of Education. This year I am the president of the Board of Education. In my former life, I was a police officer turned mother. I have 3 children in the district, and they've been in the district since they started kindergarten. My oldest is in high school. I have 1 in middle school and 1 in elementary, so I have 1 at each level of our district. I am currently back to work as an attorney, so that gives me a little bit of business sense now that I'm not just a stay-at-home mom. Let's see. I think that's pretty much it.
Excellent. Super. That's a good start. Caitlin, how about you?
Absolutely. Can you all hear me? Okay, there we go. I don't want to repeat all the things that Sherry said. I agree that those are the duties of a trustee. But I also think setting the larger vision of what the school district can accomplish outside of just the role of superintendent is really the role of the school board. And in terms of following federal law, I can tell you right now we are not complying with Title IX. So that's one of my huge priorities as a trustee. I know all about Title IX from being a student at UC Berkeley and filing my own Title IX complaint against the university. And the university was just found to be out of compliance with Title IX based on my complaint and 30 others, plus my work at Verity, the Rape Crisis Center that serves Sonoma County. So I think we need to be a lot more of a proactive school board, and I really hope to bring that voice onto the school board, and that of a student who went to these schools recently. Most of my teachers that I had aren't retired yet. They're still teaching. They're still helping kids younger than me, and I want to help them be the best teachers that they can be.
Thank you, Mike.
Well, again, I'm not going to echo what Sherry said, but she had it spot on about the board and its role, and Caitlin's right too. The board can branch out. In fact, we're being encouraged to do so by CSBA, most notably going up to the state and lobbying for more money for our teachers and our CSEA and our different stakeholders in the school district. We, as a board, have to deal with a lot of issues. It's been a very, I think, interesting transition over my tenure, which has been 8+ years. I was appointed in 2010 and have served 2 terms, and I'm seeking a 3rd term. But it's really been an interesting transition. It's not the public schools that most of us went to. Caitlin, had the advantage of that, but the rest of us went to almost a completely different model. So a lot of challenges, technology, differentiated schools, and I personally think Petaluma School District has done a wonderful job of staying abreast of trends. We're one of the greenest districts in the state. We consistently have the top graduation rate in the county. Our latest CASP scores were very good. We're above state averages. And I would like to continue to serve. I'm a local business guy, grew up in Petaluma, public school product, and my children went through the district. I went through the district, as did my wife. So I would like to continue. Thank you.
All right, just to give you a reminder, Joanna, the question is, what's the main purpose of the Board of Education, and what qualifications and experience do you have to fulfill that role?
I think in addition to what was also stated, also making budgetary decisions, not just hiring the superintendent, but evaluating him as well, and making sure that he is in compliance, and evaluating all of the administrators at the different school sites, and asking questions, how is he making these evaluations? Also advocating for students. I mean, we're elected by you guys, the residents and citizens of Petaluma. I think that if you come to us with a complaint, it's also our job to listen to what you have to say and see how we can implement change, or also assure you of how your concerns are going to be addressed. The qualifications I bring, I am a credentialed school counselor. This is my 3rd year as a counselor. Currently, I am at St. Vincent de Paul High School as an 11th and 12th grade college counselor. Previously, I was a counselor for 2 years at Kenilworth Junior High School, so I was in the union, working with parents, staff, students, and administrators.
Thank you. Maddie?
Hello. So the purpose of the board, I actually looked up the duties of the board, and it's what everybody has said, to set the vision, set the direction for the superintendent to hire, evaluate, and possibly fire the superintendent, hopefully not. And, certainly approve the budget, but to me what struck me the most was the piece about communicating with the community. It's actually now part of the local control funding formula, which is how we get our funding for our for our schools, sorry. So we need to, I think that we really need to include the community a lot more, have a lot more communication with the community in terms of setting these priorities, which is required by the local control plan, an accountability plan, which is part of the LCFF. And these priorities are essential to how our schools are funded. What are the priorities? Our priorities, and as Mike said, it's really complicated. There's technology, there are teachers, salaries, there's all different kinds of things we need to fund, and not everything is equal. So setting those priorities are the most important to me.
Phoebe?
I'm Phoebe Ellis, and I am a current school board member. And yes, as everyone has mentioned, the duties of the school board are the budget, setting policy. I think updating policy is also a very important part of our job, making sure that we're consistent with ever-changing policies. Title IX, as Caitlin mentioned, is obviously needed to be updated every year, and we're currently updating our policy. And I think community liaison is very important as a school board member. We are sort of, I think, act as a liaison between students, teachers, staff, parents, administrators. I think it's very important to get the pulse on all of those different stakeholder groups and use all of that information in making our decisions when we're acting on budget, or when we're making a decision around a policy or updating a policy. So that is very important to me as a school board member, is being involved in the community and very accessible. As far as qualifications, I have been very involved at the elementary school level. I was on the PTA, the school site council. I'm currently involved with the Petaluma High School Athletic Boosters. I served on the Juvenile Justice Commission of Sonoma County for many years. I've been very instrumental in bringing the Miracle League to Petaluma, which will be opening in the spring of 2019. And I've been acted on the board for the past 4 years and have gained a lot of experience, and I'm looking forward to moving ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. So put on those special glasses, the one that gives you the future. We're going to start with Caitlin. What's your vision for education in this community? Take a whole minute and share your vision for education.
Alrighty, starting now. So unfortunately, actually, a couple days ago, Jerry Brown vetoed the bill that would have made ethnic studies a requirement to graduate from high school in California. But I do think under, hopefully, Gavin Newsom, John Cox isn't going to win, it's fine. we'll see ethnic studies being a requirement for graduating from high schools. And so I think relevant curriculum that makes our kids want to learn, right? Like, this is a pretty white room right now, but that's not what Petaluma looks like and not what our kids look like. So finding innovative ways to include more things like ethnic studies, LGBTQ studies are incorporated in our schools more now, which as a queer woman, I'm really happy to see. And oh man, just more curriculum and relevant curriculum in terms of things like auto shop and all that good stuff. And listening to the kids more, and listening to the kids means listening to the teachers, because the teachers are the ones that interface with the kids the most.
Thank you. Mike, your vision for education in the community.
Well, we have to continue to always do what's best for kids, bottom line, and get our students career and college ready. And as society changes, we need to adapt and adjust and make sure they are, in fact, ready to go out there and fly. I would like to see us continue like we've been doing, where we differentiate our campuses and a lot of our programs. I can see in the future, not too distant future, where your students will have the opportunity to take classes, say at both our comprehensive high schools on a block schedule. They'll be able to go to Petaluma and then come over to CASA. So they'll be more like district students as opposed to a particular high school student. We'll see what the coaches have to say about that, but that's what I would see. I would see that, you know, we want to expand the opportunities so we can have all students be able to participate and learn to the best of their ability. So we have as many programs and as many fits to individually tailor those education programs and modalities to the greatest extent possible, budget permitting. Thank you.
Joanna?
I would like to see our suspension rates lowered. The suspension rates are really high amongst certain groups of students, actually almost every subgroup of student besides white, Asian, and I think American Indian, East Indian. Amongst all the other ones, the suspension rates are really high. Also, the graduation rates are really low for special ed students, so I'd like to see those raised as well. Also, with the SROs, the school resource officers on campuses, I'd like to see some anti-bias training for them as well as for the teachers in the district, because we all bring our subconscious bias into situations, and I think just recognizing those so that we can best serve our students.
My vision, I think, is a little bit more visionary, I suppose. I would really believe in something called collaborative governance, where we have everybody in the community, all the stakeholders. We have parents, we have teachers, we have administrators, we have the board, and we have the district administration all working together in order to confront and solve the challenges that are before education right now. I think we all, that's my vision for our community, is for it to be community-based, that we have lots of relationships with these wonderful organizations in the town, the Arts Center. Oh, already. So anyway, that's my vision, and I think we can do it.
Thanks, Phoebe.
Sorry. Oh, there we go. Sorry about that. My vision for Petaluma City Schools is to continue to build on our current vision, which is to prepare our students to be ready for the next step in life. It's very important that they graduate from our schools, and we have a very high graduation rate, one of the highest in Sonoma County, which we're all very proud of here. And I believe that is because of our alternative education programs that we strongly support here in our district. We have 6 different sites here in Petaluma to support students who need a smaller learning environment so that they feel comfortable and are able to move on to the next level. We want all of our students to be ready to move on to get a job, to get a vocational school, 2 or 4 year university, whatever it may be, but they need to be productive citizens ready to give back to our communities and to continue to be involved and bring them to the next level. So I'm really looking forward to building on our current vision. Thank you.
Sherry?
So my vision has to do more about getting more money for our district. I think right now there's so many things that I don't think anyone would disagree we'd love to do, but we absolutely can't do it if we don't get more funding. So I've spent the last couple of years trying to get up and lobby at Sacramento for more money. So my vision would be to be successful in that and get our district more funding. You can't pay teachers and staff more, and you can't have new programs and great sports and great arts and all these things if you don't have more money. And we're not receiving our fair share right now in the state. Also, I would really like to see a performing arts center be built. And we're on the beginning of a dream, but I think it's possible. And that would be another big dream and goal and vision of mine. A performing arts center that, just like Novato's, where you could either be a Petaluma art student, or you could be a Petaluma High or Casa Grande student and also take classes after school. So that would be another one of my great things. And then career technical education. We need to make sure we don't lose our auto shops, our hatchery, and those things.
Thank you, everyone. So you get a little bit longer, put on your minute and a half hat, Mike. And we've been asked by the audience something like, what are the two most pressing challenges facing our schools, including relationships with teaching staff, and how would you plan to address those?
The lawyer in me says that's compounded, but we'll break it down for you. The biggest challenge facing our schools, Sherry just alluded to it, is money. There was just a Stanford PACE, which is a public analysis for California education, that we were underfunded last year as a public school across the state of California by about $22 billion. I mean, that's huge of the money that they think we need in order to properly pay teachers, administer our campuses, and ultimately get the money down to the students. Money is no guarantee of better performance, but it sure helps. So the relationship with the teachers, I would actually like to work more collaboratively with them to go to Sacramento, to Sherry's point. That's where the money is. We don't make widgets. We can't come in and say, hey, we'll work Sunday night and we'll make more money and we can give it to the teachers. We get whatever the state funnels down to us, and sometimes it's one-time money, what we call just a squirt. Sometimes it's restricted, but there's only so much we can do with it, and we have to always maintain our reserves, and we're accountable to the county and the state for budgetary propriety and fiscal prudence, and we can't dip below certain standards. You just can't do it. So we have a very transparent budget system, and we have an ability for people to sit on the LCAP and get involved with our different budget committees. But I would really like to work collaboratively with the teachers to go to Sacramento, and let's sit down our representatives and tell them we simply need more money.
Thank you. So I'll rephrase that again, Joanna. What do you see as the two most pressing challenges facing our schools, including, if you wish, relations with the teachers, and how would you propose addressing those?
That was one of the pressing issues, relationship with the teachers as well as Title IX. So in terms of the relationship with the teachers, working in the union, being a part of the PFT for 2 years, I saw just a breakdown of communication. The teachers, it felt like it was adversarial with the district. So I'd like to help bridge the gap between the school sites in the district. Also, the Title IX issues, I think, is another pressing one. Sexual harassment, sexual violence on our campuses is completely unacceptable, and I just think it's gone on for too long. I don't know if parents even know what Title IX is. I don't know if students know what Title IX is, if students know how and when to report sexual violence and sexual harassment. That, to me, is the most pressing issue right now.
Thank you. Maddie, your thoughts?
The two issues that are most pressing are the budget. Obvious, we're between a rock and a hard place, and so we definitely need to work with all stakeholders, parents, teachers, here in Petaluma as well as in Sonoma County, other school boards, the California School Boards Association, the state teachers unions. the parents, everybody who, community members who really care about education, and I know that you're all here because you care about the education in this town. And it will require that. We need to change Proposition 13, which nobody wants to do, in order to get more money. And other things also. So a concerted effort, a collaborative effort is absolutely necessary, and just us, isn't going to do it. And so that's what I would like to see as the budget. Certainly repairing the teachers and district administration's relationship is absolutely essential. We can't go forward very far without repairing that rift, and it's taken many years. That rift has been opening, and to close it may take more time, but I think we need to see ourselves as partners in this, not adversaries. I don't think anybody wants that. And so to work towards that is really the highest priority for me right now.
Thank you, Phoebe.
Yes, I think the education funding scheme is going to have to be looked at in the next couple of years, and our current board is assessing that. Our district, the way we're set up and our makeup, we are sort of considered losers in the current LCFF funding scheme. So as Sherry mentioned, we've gone to the state, we're working with other districts who have similar makeups to have them reassess that and hopefully bring more money to districts like Petaluma City Schools so that we can continue to support all of our staff, teachers, classified, administrators, so that we continue to bring, vital programs here and continue our continuing education programs, which are so important for our students. And secondly, I feel very passionate about our teachers and all of our staff here at Petaluma City Schools. We're continually working to support them, find money in our budget to give them a raise, which they deserve, to encourage or to continue to provide them a very healthy benefit package, which is very important. So those things are very important to our board, and we recognize that in order to keep schools great here, we need to, to compensate our teachers and our staff. I mean, they are the key to our success here. So I think that's an ongoing process, and we are continually working very closely with all of our union groups to improve that relationship and communication.
Okay, Sherry. 2 most pressing challenges, including, if you consider it, working with the teachers, and how would you address those?
So we've beat the money issue to death. Just to state it so people understand that they're not familiar with how we get our funding. Right now, the local control funding formula, which is how we get our money for our subgroups, and is dictated, how we spend that money is dictated by the LCAP. We have an LCAP committee that a lot of stakeholders are on. The problem with the new funding formula is that there are schools in our state that are getting a lion's share of the funding. And particularly in Northern California, a lot of the districts up here, as Caitlin mentioned, if you look across the room, that are middle class, upper middle class, we don't have a large percentage of subgroups, so we're not getting the extra funding that a lot of their schools are getting. And what's happening is it's making, we're very fortunate. There are a lot of districts that are very close to bankruptcy and are really struggling, and we've done a good job. We're staying afloat, but we can't do that forever. So that is definitely the #1 priority, is getting the next governor, and our representatives have told us they're on hold with this thought until the next governor comes in. We have got to get him to understand that we have to fix the funding formula. It's not fair right now. There are so many other issues in education, so it's hard to pick out just one more that would be my second highest. Definitely the issue with the teachers. Maybe I can finish and address that in my closing statement. One of the things that I do think is really important, though, are counselors at the secondary. Our counselors have about 300 students apiece, and between trying to get them to their college or their career and deal with mental health issues, it's just too much. So I would like to improve that.
Thank you. Caitlin, your thoughts?
Money, I think, will always be an issue, so I'm not going to touch that. My 2 biggest issues are mental health among our students and making sure that our staff and teachers and administrators all feel valued. Teachers and school staff don't get into the job for the money, right? There's no teacher that's rolling around in cash. but just the little things that make teachers feel respected and make librarians feel respected, a little can go a long way. Talking to the teachers at CASA this year, on Teacher Appreciation Day, they didn't even get an email. Like one email with a few colorful words and like a couple donuts in the break room is a lot more than nothing. But just being brought in and being valued every step of the way. From what I've heard, Chromebooks are what all the teachers kind of agreed upon after talking to their students and talking to each other as what would work best for their students. And all of the sudden, it was iPads, and now we have iPads. So it's one thing to say that you're bringing the teachers and the counselors into the conversation, and it's another thing when you listen to them but do the opposite of what they say. Which I'm not saying that you need to go along with teachers on every single thing they think. In terms of mental health, I think there's a lot of bullying, and kids don't know their rights, like not even a little bit. My mentee, and her boyfriend are constantly harassed and bullied and have both thought about suicide at different points in their lives, and that's unacceptable on our campuses.
Thank you. So we'll kind of parlay off of that. You know, the two of the sponsors are organizations, at least with the name women in them, although we all are very happy to have men as part of our organizations as well. So what kind of thoughts, what kind of education and or training would you support to send our graduates out with a respectful and lawful attitude and behavior towards women? Take 1 minute. Michael. No, pardon me, Joanna. Yeah, absolutely. What kind of education and training would you support to send our graduates out with a respectful attitude and behavior towards women?
Well, when I was at Kenilworth, we had 1 day of sexual harassment training for the kids, and it was about 45 minutes long, if that. There was a handbook that was given, the little green handbook, and they went over it and said what sexual harassment was or wasn't, and that was it for the whole school year. And then if someone violated that and sexually harassed a girl, then they were reminded about the handbook and had to initial it. But there was no disciplinary action done. That was called a conference. And then the next time, then maybe there was a 1-day suspension or a detention. So I think more than 1 day and more than 45 minutes a year of sexual harassment training for 7th through 12th, or even K through 6, like starting in kindergarten, for our young men and young women to recognize sexual harassment and also how to report it.
Thank you, Maddie.
Well, that's quite a question. I would echo everything that Joanna said. I think that it's minimal right now, and we need to really take this seriously. Title IX, sexual harassment. We need to start when they're young. We have a great program for human interaction. So, but I think we need to look at it again. Start thinking about, in this culture, which is quickly changing before all of us know what's going on. We need to really have an effort with everybody, conversations with students, having them tell us what do they see as a need that's missing. Have conversations with teachers. What kind of training do they need in order to discuss these things with their students, with their parents? What do parents need? We need to have a community-wide conversation about this, and then work from there.
Thank you, Phoebe. Your thoughts?
I think we can start with our human interaction program, which does begin in 4th grade and goes 4th through 12th. And it's a required curriculum, and I do believe it, as Maddie mentioned, it needs to be updated and looked at. I think times have changed, and obviously, as we all know, what's going on in our country, and we need to make that more relevant, that curriculum. And I do believe that it's a nice opportunity to to build the partnerships with our parents and families as well, and get our community involved with this kind of education, because a lot of it starts at the home, and we need the support of parents and our extended community. So I do believe that it's a discussion that's going on, and I think will continue. I know in some of the secondary classes, you know, history and government, civics, that those discussions are happening, and I think will continue to happen. So I do believe it's going on, but definitely needs to be addressed moving forward.
Sherry?
So we do have programs kindergarten through 12th. We do have a lot of how to respect others that starts at kindergarten, anti-bullying, sexual harassment, or human interaction. I feel the problem is when you have teachers that are already really busy teaching the area they need to teach, or if you're an elementary school teacher, you're teaching everything. I'm going to put it back on the need for more counseling staff that can do interventions, more counseling staff that have the time. I mean, if you think about it, a counselor has 300 plus students and is worried about getting people graduating, getting them their college credits if that's what they want to do, getting them through their CTE program. And I'll tell you, working closely with the counselor in the last couple of years, when a counselor has a student that comes in and wants to hurt themselves or is having some kind of emotional problem, everything else stops, and they're now dealing with that student for the next couple of days. There's just not enough counseling availability. Lastly, I'll say it's definitely another issue is that we get our students how they come to us. Some of them come hungry, some of them come tired, some of them come emotionally distraught. And so the more counseling we had that could reach out and identify these families, these issues, would be really helpful.
Caitlin, do you care to amplify?
You can't give the rape crisis counselor only a minute to answer this, y'all. I'll try and go as fast as I can. It starts with teaching our kids to respect women and our girls to respect themselves. And no, I don't mean in terms of like modesty and all of that stuff. I mean truly modeling respecting women on our campuses. And most teachers are women, so respecting our teachers, that's just one way. Verity, the nonprofit I work for, offers all of this curriculum for free, y'all. And it is not unknown to Petaluma City Schools. We went to Petaluma City Schools earlier this summer, and we're in the works of developing curriculum with them to have clubs and classes on the campuses, which is awesome and really exciting. And if we get funded, that'll be free for Petaluma City Schools. So the resources are out there. We don't have to put it on teachers and counselors. We just have to be creative and look places and model respecting women and respecting all people ourselves, and seeing women in literature and history and talking about them instead of the same white men every single class.
Michael?
Sure. Well, I've kind of agreed with a couple of the sentiments echoed here, that it starts at home, and then we as a community have an obligation, how we model as adults, how we treat each other, how we respect each other, both at our council meetings, at our board meetings, however we interact with each other, men and women alike. As a father of 3 daughters and a guy that still loves his wife after 35 years, I'll probably get, well, just saying. So I think respect for women, you know, continues at the schools. They continue to reinforce. We need to reinforce that. But it's for others, regardless of gender. We just need to learn to respect each other. I think we want to continue to empower women to speak up and assert themselves. I think, you know, a lot of our problems start with gratuitous sex and violence in the media, video games and stuff. So you've got these objectifications going on, and these kids are getting really mixed message. And it's tough on the schools, but we're trying with mental health. And like Joanna said, some of the programs, we can do a much better job, and we have to.
Thank you, everyone. So let's take a look at another audience question. See if I can phrase this. How about name one decision by the board on which you agree, that was controversial, that you agree or you disagree, and go ahead and take a minute. Let's start that with Maddie. A controversial decision by the board this last year that you agree with or disagree with.
Well, does it start when I start talking? Right. Okay, I'm actually pretty stymied by this one. I apologize. I do remember going to a board meeting, but I don't know whether it was this year. And they were going to have to close the auto shop. And it wasn't that the board or the administration wanted to close the auto shop. And I just remember thinking that there was kind of a lack of imagination of how we could possibly keep this open. And I know, and also, you know, the program itself was moribund. You know, it had an engine that had been donated to the auto shop like in 1950. So it was not computer literate or training them for what they're going to have to do. And so there was reasons behind it. It wasn't that I disagreed with what happened at all. It was just these are the kinds of issues that come up that are a problem. Eventually they closed it, but then they got it back, I guess.
Excellent. You can agree with the decision. So it's something that was controversial that came up that you wanted to, that you would do over, or you liked your choice?
So we had a difficult decision this past school year, when we were looking at staffing to contract for our alternative ed programs. And many teachers who teach in those schools specifically came to speak to us, and we received many emails. We were on sites visiting. Because of the population that those teachers and counselors and staff are working with constantly, so you know, they've always had very small class sizes, or smaller than at the comprehensive campuses. So we had to look at, you know, we were sort of in a budget cut year, so we were looking at areas which would obviously affect the students the least, where we can continue to provide, you know, quality education. So that was, we had many lengthy discussions behind the scenes in closed session, and we ultimately did vote to staff to the contract ratio, which we had not done previously. So that was a difficult decision.
Thank you, Sherry.
Unfortunately, right now, we have a majority of the current school board sitting up here, so a couple of our most recent controversial things we can't talk to or speak to due to the Brown Act. I like the auto shop one, but I was very involved in that decision and a lot of behind the scenes. And that actually was not about closing auto shop. It was about finding a teacher that could teach auto shop and getting a good teacher, and then getting some funding to have enough sections. So that was actually, I agreed with how we pushed forward in that, and that was actually very fun for me because I got to participate behind the scenes and I got to go to the meetings. We have a phenomenal group of people on the Petaluma, the west side of town, that really wanted to keep that program going. Cruising the Boulevard, a lot of those folks stepped up and really helped. Casa Grande's auto shop's doing really good, so they were all set. But that was one that I really felt we did try to be creative. We did think out of the box. We did push forward, and we're keeping that one going. So that's a win.
Hopefully all y'all know how I feel about the teachers' strike. Teachers should have never had to strike, but I was out there on the strike line. What I'll talk about instead was actually the meeting where I found out that a strike was being discussed. I went to a school board meeting to talk about ICE on campuses and keeping ICE off campuses. And the answer we heard back was, well, we have a policy about that. And there was no effort, from what I could tell, to make sure that teachers and students and parents and staff knew what that policy was and truly understood it, so that there would be less fear on campuses. Because we know that ICE loves to pretend that they don't know the law, right? They show up and act like they don't know the law. So we need to know that our staff and our teachers and our students know their legal rights, so that they're not going to be taken away from their families or deported. And that was a really real fear for a lot of our immigrant families, and I don't think it was taken as seriously as it should have been, and I think it deserved another meeting and conversation.
Thank you. Mike, your thoughts?
Well, one, I can share a personal one, because we get a lot of them. But I was not exactly in favor of the pool renovation project at Petaluma High went way over budget, and it's bond money, and you can only use that for facilities improvement, but we need to spread it around. We got a lot of campuses, and we had a lot of campuses in a state of disrepair. And so when we started looking at those numbers, you think it's going to come back, and those of you in public service know what I'm talking about, it's going to come back at one level, and you're already behind the 8 ball, and it's moving, and you get into a high concentrated construction field, and now you're paying more and more, so you almost can't catch up. But because of a lot of citizens that came and the way they presented it and the way they interacted with us and they got involved in the committees, I was persuaded by them. So I went out of my budgetary comfort zone, and you know, a lot of schools are shutting pools, a lot of districts are shutting pools down, and I'm really pleased that I made that decision. But that was one where I was really, when I started out, was kind of on the no side, and I went to the yes side.
Thank you very much. Joanna, thoughts?
I think I'll speak to the most recent one was the Petaluma High valedictorian mic getting cut off. I went to one of those meetings, and it just felt like a lot of other things in our district, when people bring up an issue, just kind of went away, and I don't know if there was an action taken. It seemed like just lack of action. I didn't see any Title IX policy updates or any real response to why her microphone was cut, who cut it. There's still a lot of unanswered questions, so that's the one for me.
Thank you so much. So before we go on to closing remarks, which will give you an opportunity to readdress anything that you thought of afterwards, after it was your turn, and get to highlight yourselves, let's take a look, and we'll start with you, Phoebe, at there's been the usual discussions that come about communication. What has been, or what would be your plan to communicate with all of the feeder districts and the existing districts? Or how do you personally keep on top and then share information having to do with your, things that are under your control as a school board member?
So I just want to clarify how I personally would handle that, or how our district handles
No,
it?
you.
Me personally, as a school board member.
How would you become familiar with stuff, and how would you let everybody know your thoughts?
I'm sorry, from feeder districts, is that what you're?
Did-
Yeah, feeder districts. How you become
Yes.
more familiar with feeder districts?
And your own school, and your own school district too. In other words, how do you get out there and let them know what you why should they care about you?
To stand for, or what you're
Yeah.
into, right? I currently spend a great deal of time visiting campuses in our district. I am constantly talking to teachers, administrators. I have 3 children of my own, so I have a lot of children and students at my house oftentimes, or in my car, so I'm always asking them questions. They get very annoyed with me, but I continually ask in the carpool in the morning, who has a math test? How's the math program going? So I feel like I'm very current and relevant with what's going on in the schools, in Petaluma City Schools, for certain. I'm on several committees at the ballet studio, Little League, different ventures all throughout Petaluma. So I feel like I am very in tune with all of the stakeholders, and I pride myself in being available and accessible to people. As far as the feeder districts, I am familiar with some of the other board members in the WA School District. So I am in communication with them as well about what's going on in their districts, and I know teachers in both in the WA and the Old Adobe School District that I communicate with, and Liberty, Cinnabar, Wilson, all of those feeder districts I try to be in communication with. And one of our former principals, Ms. Garvey, is at Wilson, so we be in communication with her as well.
Thank you.
So when I first got on the board, the Board of Trustees didn't have emails. Our names and information weren't on the website, and that was one of the things that was my first kind of bone of contention with the superintendent at the time. And I worked very hard to get the school board trustees to have emails, to have them on the website, and to get our emails to be private, because there was a while that the superintendent reviewed all emails that came to the board and forwarded what they thought we needed to have. And we put a stop to that pretty quick. Since then, we have updated our website. We're on all our social media platforms. We've gotten into marketing, tried to get brochures out. We try to do more job fairs. We try to do more recruiting. I feel like we've done a much better job really trying to get ourselves out there. We all have emails. We all have phone numbers that are our personal phone numbers on the website. We answer our emails. We answer our phone calls. I was on the LCAP committee. We do site visits. I have children in all the schools, so I try very hard to talk to parents and talk to students and get out there. But that was probably one of the things that I was very proud of, is pushing to get us more accessible in the beginning.
Thank you. Caitlin, your thoughts?
I think we need to be a lot more creative in how we try and find parents and kids and families in the community. The families that we see involved in things like the PTA and LCAP are the white families that can afford it, mostly the middle upper class families whose parents have normal 9-to-5 jobs like myself. We need to find out where Latino families are hanging out and where other families are spending all of their time, and be there as community members. I can't say I can be at school when the kids get out because I work until 5, but I can be there in the morning. I can be creative. I can be at different events on the weekends. I'm really active with Mentor Me right now, as I previously mentioned, and even though I don't have kids, I'm the only one up here who doesn't have a kid that went through any of these schools. But I think I know a lot of what our kids are going through. My brother graduated from these schools. I know a lot of the younger kids still. And I mean, I feel like them in a lot of ways still, but with the experience of a real grown-up.
Thanks, Mike. Your turn.
Well, like Phoebe mentioned, as a guy that grew up in Petaluma, I know a lot of parents and teachers from all the districts, and Wilson, Cinnabar, Adobe, obviously our own, and you talk to them. I see them at the grocery store, I see them at ball games, I know their kids, and we interact, and we talk about school issues all the time. Petaluma, I think, has done a great job of actually promoting itself, the Petaluma City School District. We've had a director of communication, and I got to tell you, the new world order in public education is competition. Again, I said it wasn't, for those of us who are a little bit older, it's not our school district or the public school education we grew up with. Schools need to compete for students. I mean, to Caitlin's point, you've got to reach out and do outreaches, and it seems kind of counterintuitive to public education, but it's competitive. But we have done a good job outreach. We got Avance over at McDowell to reach out to the Hispanic families. McKinley School did a great family outreach through Matt Harris. So we've actually really tried to diversify, and get some of these, other families who maybe were disenfranchised into our fold.
Thank you. Joanna?
Repeat that one more time, the question.
Yes. What do you think would be your strategy for communicating with feeder districts and your current district? Both directions, getting information and giving information.
Okay, so I live on the east side of town, and the only schools on that side that are Petaluma City schools are CASA and Kenilworth. So as a counselor at Kenilworth, one of my big duties every year was to go out and communicate with the feeder schools. I visited 10 feeder schools, and none of them were in the Petaluma City School District. Not only going and making presentations to the students, but also having transition IEP meetings for the students who had IEPs, and also transition 504. So with the special ed staff on their campuses as well. Also asking the teachers which students are at risk, so that when they come into our schools, we're prepared to help them and give them the resources that they need. And more counseling support is needed. Like Sherry mentioned, instead of 300, I had 440 students at one point. And then also diversify our teaching and support staff.
Thank you. And lastly, Maddie, your thoughts on communication.
I've got all kinds of ideas about communication. First off, I would really love to see the website being used much more dynamically. We could have visibility in the community. I mean, we have the website, so let's have students come up with ideas to film events. We have all these wonderful things going on with the bond where we had all kinds of projects all summer long. And why not have, little movies of what was going on, what our bond money is being spent on. We could have the students involved. We could have a board page. See, I even have it written down. Where the board, we had videos of our visits. So that the feeder districts, everyone in the community knows what's going on, what we're doing, how we're trying to reach out to everybody, so that everyone is really, aware that we are doing this.
Well, thank you so much. We had so many good questions. We were able to squeeze some in from the audience, and so I'm afraid we've cut down your final closing remarks to 1 minute each, and we're going to go backwards. So, Phoebe, we're going to give you a chance to start with your wrap-up. Address anything that you think you forgot, or give us your credentials.
So I think I've spoken to it very loud and clearly tonight. Hopefully my message is that I am very vested in Petaluma City Schools. I have great pride in our public school system here. I think it's very important for our community. I think we've done a lot of great things in the last 4 years since I've been on the board. We were able to roll out a complete English language arts new adoption, TK through 8, and we are working towards a 9 through 12 English language arts adoption in the next year and a half. We have an entire new math program was rolled out to TK through 12 in the last 2 years, which has taken a lot of effort and time and energy by all of our staff and students and families, so that's pretty impressive. We are moving forward with our technology. We have all new furniture in our schools. Our students are learning. Our students are productive. They are graduating. They are going on to jobs and colleges and vocational schools. And I'm really interested in serving another term to continue all of those projects. So thank you.
Thank you. Maddie?
Thank you to AAUW and to the League of Women Voters and to the Argus Courier for allowing us this opportunity to let you know who we are. I, of course, inadvertently did not tell you what my qualifications are, and so I want to go through that right now. I'm a retired English teacher from Casa Grande High School. I taught for 10 years. I was late to the profession. I didn't start teaching till I was 56. It's been the most wonderful, challenging, engaging, rewarding experience I've ever had. I became a teacher because I think teachers are one of the hearts of the community. They're in charge of our children. So I got to join that group. So I just wanted to say that I was a CTE teacher, career technical education. I taught baking. I was a pastry chef. And so when we talk about career tech, when we talk about college readiness, I taught English. I think I can bring my experience to the board.
Thank you. I'm so sorry for the 1 minute limit. Well, I changed it. We're running out of time. Joanna, you're up.
So I'm also a parent. I have 4 daughters, and 2 of them are currently in Petaluma City Schools, and then the younger 2 will be eventually. They're in the Wall School District. And oh God, what's the question? I was just supposed to be talking about myself, sorry.
Your closing remarks.
My closing remarks, sorry. So as a parent and also as a counselor, I feel like I can bring a lot to the district, bridging the gap between the schools and the parents and the administration. I felt like when I was in the district, there was like this fear of retaliation. If people spoke up about certain things, they were scared that they were going to lose their jobs or their contracts. I'd like to see that end so people can speak up and advocate for their students. I'd also like to see more representation. I was the only Black staff member at Kenilworth, and not there anymore, and just more representation so that students of color have tangible examples of women in power.
Thank you, Mike. Your closing remarks.
Thank you. I'm proud of Petaluma City Schools. I'm proud of the board I serve on. I think it's one of the probably the best educated boards with 4 doctorates and a master's. So those people on that board definitely understand education. We work very well together. We're very collaborative. And I think we get a lot of things done. And I think most of you can see there's been a lot of changes that everybody up here has identified, and most positive, but we can always learn. There's always wrinkles, there's always setbacks, and we can always learn, and that's part of the fun of it, actually, and certainly the challenge. We've improved our campuses, we've rolled out technology, we've got the best CTE in the county, certified technical education, we've got differentiated campuses. We literally have a fit for everyone. I mean, we constantly have the highest graduation rates in Sonoma County, and we're, superintendent just informed me, we're the greenest school district in Sonoma County. We've been very progressive about that, trying to mitigate our footprint, and just being very proactive and progressive, and I would like to continue to serve on the board to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Caitlin?
I know I'm young. I'm 25. I graduated CASA in 2011, but I am not inexperienced, I promise. I have spent so much more time than I care to admit in Sacramento talking to the legislators that everyone's talking about. I've served on nonprofit boards. I work at a nonprofit. I know all about trying to get creative sources of funding and figuring out ways to make things happen. I went to these schools. I graduated recently. I know what it's like to be a queer student at these schools. I know what it's like to be a survivor of sexual violence at a public school. I know what it's like to be bullied in these schools. And I'm not saying that because I'm bitter or angry, but I know what it's like, and I know that we can change it and make it better for all of our students. I'm the only candidate that was endorsed by the Argus Courier and Indivisible Petaluma and the Sonoma County Democratic Party and the Teachers Union. And I promise you that they all vetted me very thoroughly, and I answered a lot of questions. So feel free to contact any of those organizations or myself to learn a little more, and thank you all for coming out.
And Sherry?
I think I'm going to hit on some things that I didn't get to talk about. One of the things I think it's really hard about being a school board member, and that's very difficult for the public, especially if you come to public comment, is so many things that we deal with are confidential. Because we deal with students, because we deal with staff who have rights to confidentiality as well, it's very difficult when you come to public comment. I heard earlier about the ICE situation and our immigration. I worked very hard behind the scenes on making sure our families knew what to do in an emergency, making sure that they knew we were there for them. But that was something our families did not want us to advertise. So we didn't do a lot of discussing that at public board meetings. One, if it wasn't on the agenda, we couldn't talk about it. But also, we were trying desperately to keep our families safe and make sure they felt secure. And screaming to the world that we had a large population of undocumented people was not something they wanted. So sometimes it's hard for the public because things are confidential and we can't share it openly. I'm really proud of the work that we've done at McKinley. I think Matthew Harris has done a wonderful job there, and Ani is doing great. Lastly, about communication, something I failed to mention. As far as feeder districts and other board members, our board is finally actively going to CSBA conferences every year, participating in SCO events, and that gets us out statewide and countywide. So that's good also. Thank you.
Fabulous. Thank you. So for over 50 years, the American Association of University Women in our Petaluma branch has brought you candidates, debates, and forums, most often with our very favorite partners, the League of Women Voters of Sonoma County and the Argus Courier. We encourage you to stay informed and active in your participation in government. And because you're here tonight or you're watching at home, I think you've already figured that, or you agree with that philosophy. This is just a snapshot of these candidates. Please visit their websites, give them a call, email them. You can find additional nonpartisan information about all the elections and candidates on the League of Women Voters election website, which is SmartVoter, all one word, smartvoter.org. As we come to the close of the evening, we want you to stick around for an opportunity to learn more about candidates for Petaluma's mayor and city council in the forum immediately following. And now I would like to thank these candidates for joining us this evening. Please give them a round of applause. Remember to vote on November 6th.